The vast command ship Eternal Glory drifted through space like a crystal mountain. Its walls gleamed with blue light, and inside Admiral Kethvar studied the reports from his scout ships. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. "Another primitive world, Admiral," reported his second-in-command, Captain Velthara. She pointed to the holographic display showing a small blue planet. "They call it Earth, third planet from their star. The beings there seem to be carbon-based life forms." Kethvar barely looked up from his datapad. In his 300 years of service to the Zephyrian hegemony, he had seen the same scene dozens of times. A new world discovered, primitive beings who thought they were alone in the universe. The same pattern always followed. "What is their technology level?" he asked, his voice showing no interest. "Very basic, Admiral. They use radio waves for communication. Their ships are made of metal and burn chemical fuel. Our scouts estimate they are at least 500 years behind our weakest member species." Kethvar nodded. This was normal. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had brought peace to over 200 worlds. Each time it started the same way. Find a primitive world. Offer them a choice. Join the hegemony peacefully or be forced to join. The choice was always the same because the result was always the same. No species had ever been strong enough to fight the hegemony. Why would these humans be any different? "Send the standard first contact message," Kethvar ordered. "Tell them we want to meet their leaders. Make it sound friendly." 3 days later, something unexpected happened. Instead of sending their leaders to grovel and beg, the humans sent a single ship to the hegemony border station. It was a small vessel, roughly the size of a hegemony scout ship, but made of dull gray metal instead of crystal. The human ambassador who stepped off the ship was unlike anything the Zephyrians had seen. Where they were tall and thin with blue crystal skin, he was short and thick with pink flesh. He wore simple clothes and smiled constantly, showing his teeth. "I am Ambassador Chen Li," the human said through a translation device. "I represent the United Earth government. We are honored to meet the famous Zephyrian hegemony." Admiral Kethvar watched the meeting through a video link from his ship. The human seemed so weak, so soft. His ship looked like it was held together with bolts and welding marks. Everything about them screamed primitive technology. "We offer you the same choice we offer all species," the hegemony representative explained to Chen Li. "Join our great civilization, share in our peace and prosperity. Accept our guidance and your people will never know war again." Chen Li nodded politely. "That is very generous. May I ask what happens if we choose not to join? Then your people will be brought into the hegemony by force. This is for your own good. Primitive species cannot be allowed to develop weapons that might threaten galactic peace." The human ambassador's smile never faded. "I understand. How long do we have to decide?" "1 rotation of your planet around your star." "1 of your years?" "Actually," Chen Li said, still smiling, "could we have just 1 rotation of our planet? 1 day? My government will want to respond quickly to such an important offer." The hegemony representative was surprised. Most species begged for more time. Years to prepare their surrender. But humans wanted only 1 day. This showed they understood how hopeless their situation was. "Very well, 1 day." As Chen Li prepared to leave, he made one last request. "Would it be possible for me to take some readings of your station? For scientific purposes, my people would be fascinated to learn about your technology." The request seemed harmless. What could primitive humans learn from looking at hegemony technology? They let Chen Li and his team take all the readings they wanted. What the Zephyrians did not know was that Chen Li's ship was not as primitive as it looked. Hidden inside its metal hull were quantum sensors more advanced than anything in hegemony space. While Chen Li smiled and made polite conversation, his ship was recording everything, every energy signature, every weapon system, every shield frequency, every tactical protocol. The humans were not just visitors. They were intelligence gatherers of the highest skill. When Chen Li returned to Earth, he brought with him a complete analysis of hegemony military technology. Earth's greatest scientists and military minds studied the data for hours. What they found was both good news and bad news. The bad news was that hegemony ships were indeed powerful. Their energy weapons could destroy cities. Their shields could stop almost any attack. Their ships were faster than anything Earth had built. The good news was that hegemony technology was old. Very old. They had not improved their weapons or tactics in hundreds of years. They had become comfortable, lazy. They expected every fight to be easy because every fight had been easy. More importantly, Earth's sensors had detected a fatal flaw in their shield systems. A frequency that could be exploited. A weakness that could be used against them. 24 hours after Chen Li left the border station, Earth sent its response. It was not a message of surrender. It was not a plea for more time. It was 8 words that made every hegemony leader stop what they were doing. Diplomatic solution preferred. Military solution available. Admiral Kethvar read the message 3 times. Military solution? These primitive humans thought they could fight the hegemony. It was impossible. It was insane. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. We will position ourselves at the edge of their star system. When they see our ships, they will understand their mistake. Within days, 500 hegemony warships gathered at the border of Sol system. Each ship was a kilometer long and bristled with weapons. Together, they represented more firepower than most civilizations could imagine. Admiral Kethvar sent one final message to Earth. You have seen our fleet. You understand your situation. Surrender now, and your people will be treated well. Continue to resist, and your world will be conquered by force. Earth's response came 6 hours later. It was not words. It was ships. The human fleet that emerged from behind their moon was small. Only 47 vessels. Each one was roughly the same size as a hegemony cruiser. But they looked different. Where hegemony ships were smooth crystal, human ships were angular metal. They looked like they were built for war. Admiral, Captain Velthara reported, the human ships are taking attack positions. Kethvar laughed. 47 ships against 500. It would be a massacre, but at least it would be quick. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet, prepare for battle. Show these humans what happens when primitive species challenge the hegemony. But as the human ships moved into position, something strange happened. They moved with perfect coordination. No wasted motion. No confusion. Each ship knew exactly where to go and exactly what to do. It was as if they had practiced this exact battle 1,000 times. Admiral Kethvar watched the human formation and felt the first hint of doubt. These ships moved like they belonged to a military force that had been fighting wars for centuries. But Earth had no space wars. They had no space enemies. How could they move like experienced warriors? The answer would come soon enough. And when it did, it would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about the small blue planet called Earth. The first shots came from impossible range. Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical display in confusion as red warnings flashed across the screen. Human weapons were hitting his ships from distances that should have been safe. How are they doing this? He demanded. Their weapons should not reach us from there. Captain Velthara checked her readings twice before answering. Admiral, their projectile weapons are moving at 12% of light speed. Our data said primitive species could not achieve such velocities. On the main screen, Kethvar watched in horror as metal slugs punched through the shields of his lead ships like they were not there. Each impact sent shockwaves through the crystalline hulls, cracking them open and venting atmosphere into space. All ships, return fire, he ordered. The hegemony fleet opened fire with their energy weapons. Bright blue beams lanced across space toward the human ships. But the humans were no longer where the beams were aimed. They had moved with impossible speed and precision. They knew where we were going to shoot, Velthara whispered. How did they know? Admiral Kethvar had no answer. In 300 years of space combat, he had never seen anything like this. The humans fought like they could see the future. Every hegemony tactic was countered before it was fully formed. Every formation was broken before it could be effective. But it was not just their technology that was wrong. It was their entire approach to fighting. The hegemony had rules for space combat, ancient traditions that all civilized species followed. When a ship was disabled, you gave its crew time to surrender. When shields fell, you offered terms. War was supposed to be civilized. The humans had no such rules. When a hegemony ship lost its shields, human weapons tore it apart in seconds. When crew members tried to surrender, the humans ignored them and kept shooting. They fought like they wanted to destroy everything that opposed them. Captain Zek Mora is requesting permission to withdraw, Velthara reported. His ship has lost main power. Denied, Kethvar replied. We outnumber them 10-1. We cannot retreat from primitive humans. But even as he spoke, more hegemony ships were dying. The humans had split into small groups and were attacking from multiple directions. Each group moved independently, but somehow they all worked together perfectly. It was like watching a pack of predators hunt. Each human ship knew exactly what the others were doing without any visible communication. 20 minutes into the battle, Admiral Kethvar received a communication request from the human fleet. The face that appeared on his screen was that of a middle-aged human female with short gray hair and hard eyes. "I am Admiral Sarah Kane, commanding the 7th Fleet of the United Earth Navy," she said. "Admiral Kethvar, your fleet is being destroyed. Order your ships to stand down and we will allow survivors to return home." 7th Fleet? Kethvar repeated. "What happened to your first 6 fleets?" Admiral Kane smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "They are busy with other duties. This seemed like a job for our newest fleet." The words hit Kethvar like a physical blow. Newest fleet? This devastating force that was tearing his armada apart was their newest and presumably weakest fleet? "Impossible," he said. "You are a primitive species. You have no spacefaring military tradition." "Admiral," Kane replied, "humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We have studied every form of combat ever invented. When we learned we were not alone in the universe, we spent 50 years preparing for this day." On his tactical display, Kethvar watched another squadron of his ships explode under human fire. In 30 minutes of combat, he had lost over 200 vessels. "The humans had lost too. How?" he asked. "Your ships broadcast their targeting data on frequencies we can intercept," Kane explained calmly. "Your formations are based on tactics that are thousands of years old. Your commanders make the same decisions in the same situations every time. You have not fought a real war in so long that you have forgotten how." Another wave of human projectiles slammed into hegemony ships. Each shot was perfectly aimed, hitting weak points that the Zephyrians did not even know they had. "We studied your battles against other species," Kane continued. "Every recording we could find. Your people fight like you expect to win easily. You have never faced an enemy that adapted to your tactics faster than you could change them." Admiral Kethvar looked at his remaining ships. Less than half his fleet was still combat ready. The humans had barely been scratched. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Nothing," Kane replied. "We want you to leave our space and never come back. We want you to tell your leaders that Earth is not interested in joining your hegemony. We want to be left alone. And if we refuse," Admiral Kane's expression did not change, "then we will destroy every ship in your fleet and send the wreckage back to your leaders as our answer." Kethvar looked at his tactical display one more time. His ships were scattered and damaged. The humans were closing in for the final attack. He had 2 choices: order a retreat that would shame the hegemony or watch his entire fleet die. "All ships," he broadcast, "withdraw to the edge of the system." The retreat was a disaster. As hegemony ships tried to escape, the humans pursued them with methodical precision. They did not shoot randomly or waste ammunition. Every shot was carefully aimed to disable engines and weapons without destroying the ships completely. It was a display of skill that terrified the surviving hegemony crews. The humans could have destroyed them all, but they chose to let them live. The message was clear: we are showing you mercy because we choose to, not because we have to. As the last hegemony ships limped toward the edge of the Sol system, Admiral Kane sent one final message: "Tell your leaders what you have seen here today. Tell them that Earth has 10 fleets like this one. Tell them that the 7th Fleet was just our way of saying hello." Admiral Kethvar stared at the communication screen long after it went dark. 10 fleets. If this was what their 7th Fleet could do, what were the first 6 capable of? The retreat to hegemony space took 3 weeks. 3 weeks for the survivors to think about what they had witnessed. 3 weeks to realize that everything they thought they knew about warfare was wrong. When they finally reached the safety of hegemony territory, the reports they filed would change everything. For the first time in 3,000 years, the mighty Zephyrian hegemony had been defeated in open battle, and the species that defeated them claimed this was just one of their training fleets. Captain Velthara found Admiral Kethvar in his quarters, staring out at the stars. "Admiral," she said quietly, "the Council is demanding a full report." "What do I tell them?" Kethvar asked. "That we were defeated by a species we thought was primitive. That they fought like they had been preparing for war their entire lives. That they have 9 more fleets we have never seen." "We tell them the truth," Velthara replied. "We tell them that we found something in that small blue planet that we were not prepared for." Kethvar nodded slowly. The truth was that the hegemony had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened something that had been waiting for them. something that was ready for war in ways they could not imagine. And somewhere in the depths of space, 9 other human fleets continued their patrols, waiting for their turn to show the galaxy what Earth was really capable of. The Great Council Chamber had not seen such chaos in 1,000 years. Representatives from 200 worlds filled the massive crystal hall, their voices echoing off the walls as they argued and shouted. At the center of it all sat the High Council, 7 ancient Zephyrians who had ruled the hegemony for centuries. High Counselor Thekvar called for order with his ceremonial staff. The sound rang through the chamber like a bell, and slowly the voices died down. "We have heard Admiral Kethvar's report," Thekvar announced. "The facts are clear. Our fleet was defeated by a previously unknown human military force. What we must decide now is how to respond." Counselor Melandra, the oldest member of the High Council, spoke first. "In 3,000 years, no species has ever defeated a hegemony fleet in open battle. These humans must possess technology we do not understand. Or they have been hiding their true capabilities," added Counselor Rekthon. "Our intelligence reports show that humans have been unified under a single government for less than a century. How could they develop such advanced military doctrine so quickly?" Admiral Kethvar stood to address the council. His once proud uniform was wrinkled and his face showed the strain of the past weeks. "Honored counselors, I have spent my career studying military tactics. What I saw in the Sol system was not the work of a primitive species. The humans fought with a level of coordination and skill that takes centuries to develop." "Explain," Thekvar commanded. Their ships moved as one mind. Each vessel knew exactly what the others would do without any communication we could detect. Their weapons targeted our weak points with precision that should have been impossible. They anticipated our tactics before we implemented them. Kethvar paused, looking around the chamber. But most disturbing was their attitude toward warfare. We fight to subdue and control. They fight to win completely. They showed no hesitation in destroying ships that refused to surrender. A murmur ran through the chamber. The hegemony prided itself on civilized warfare. The idea of fighting to completely destroy an enemy was barbaric. "There is more," Kethvar continued. "The human admiral called her force the 7th Fleet. She claimed they have 10 such fleets. If this is true, then what we faced was not even their primary military force." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Counselor Valandra raised her hand for silence. "We must verify these claims," she declared. "I propose we send reconnaissance missions into human space. We need to know exactly what we are dealing with." Over the next month, the hegemony launched dozens of spy missions toward Earth. What they discovered sent waves of fear through the highest levels of government. The first reconnaissance team reported observing human ships in 47 different star systems. Each group of ships had completely different designs, suggesting they came from different fleets with different purposes. The second team managed to get close enough to Earth to observe their defensive installations. What they saw defied belief. The entire solar system was ringed with weapon platforms, each one capable of destroying a hegemony cruiser. Asteroid bases housed fleets of fighters. Hidden missile batteries turned every moon into a fortress. But the third reconnaissance mission brought the most terrifying news of all. Commander Yelthar had managed to observe human fleet exercises in a system 30 light-years from Earth. What she witnessed would haunt her dreams for the rest of her life. They were practicing planetary siege tactics, she reported to the council. Ships the size of cities, each one capable of destroying continents. I watched them coordinate the movement of over 300 vessels in perfect formation. She activated a holographic display showing her recordings. The council watched in silence as massive human dreadnoughts moved through space like a deadly ballet. This was not their largest fleet, Yelthar continued. According to their communications, this was the 3rd Fleet conducting routine training exercises. They spoke of it like it was normal, everyday activity. Counselor Rekthon leaned forward. "What else did you learn?" "The humans have been preparing for galactic warfare for over a century," Yelthar replied. "Their entire society seems organized around the assumption that they would eventually face enemies from space. Every major population center has orbital defenses. Every industrial facility can be converted to military production within days. The implications hit the council like a physical blow. While the hegemony had spent centuries enjoying peace and prosperity, humans had been preparing for war. But how did they know?" asked Melandra. How could they prepare for enemies they had never met? The answer came from an unexpected source, Dr. Korvash, the hegemony's leading expert on primitive civilizations, requested permission to address the council. Honored counselors, I have studied human history extensively since our first contact. What I found explains everything we have witnessed. He activated his own display, showing images of Earth's surface. Humans are the only known species that achieve spaceflight while still fighting wars among themselves. Most civilizations unify peacefully before reaching the stars. Humans reached space while their planet was still divided into competing military powers. The images showed human cities destroyed by warfare, vast armies clashing across continents, weapons that could level entire regions. They have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history, Korvash continued. Every form of combat, every military strategy, every weapon of war. They have tested it all against themselves. When they finally unified, they had thousands of years of military experience to draw upon. The council sat in stunned silence. You are saying, Tekvar said slowly, that humans learned to fight by fighting each other? Precisely. And when they learned they were not alone in the universe, they did what they have always done. They prepared for war. Counselor Valandra asked the question everyone was thinking. What do our military experts think our chances would be in a full-scale war against Earth? The silence that followed was answer enough. Finally, Admiral Kethvar spoke. Based on what we have observed, a direct military confrontation with Earth would result in the destruction of the hegemony. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. They have superior technology, superior tactics, and superior numbers, he continued. But most importantly, they have something we lost long ago. They remember how to fight a war where losing means extinction. High Counselor Thekvar looked around the chamber at the faces of representatives from 200 worlds. Fear was written on every face. Then we must ensure that such a war never happens, he declared. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we wish to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence. As the council session ended, the representatives filed out in worried silence. For 3,000 years, the hegemony had been the strongest force in the galaxy. Now they had learned that there was something stronger, and that something had been waiting for them in a small solar system, building fleets and preparing for the day when the galaxy would come calling. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of human deterrence had begun. Admiral Kethvar remained in the chamber after everyone else had left, staring at the holographic display that still showed images of human warships. Somewhere out there, 9 more fleets were conducting their own exercises, 9 more groups of ships that could each destroy the most powerful force the hegemony could assemble. The humans had not sought to conquer the galaxy. They had simply made it impossible for anyone else to conquer them, and in doing so, they had changed the balance of power forever. The largest fleet in galactic history stretched across space like a metal constellation. Ships from every corner of the hegemony had answered the call. Zephyrian crystal vessels flew alongside the organic bioships of the Veltari. The geometric craft of the Cordan Formation flew next to the flowing designs of the Aquatic Collective. 2,847 ships, representatives of dozens of species, the combined military might of an empire that spanned half the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Zekthul stood on the bridge of the massive command ship Universal Dominion, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Never before had so much firepower been assembled in one place. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we are receiving surrender demands from the human colony worlds. They are asking us to withdraw from their territory immediately. Zekthul laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. Let them demand. When they see this fleet, they will understand the futility of resistance. The hegemony force had positioned itself just outside the Sol system, close enough to be detected by human sensors but far enough away to avoid immediate attack. The plan was simple. Show the humans a force so overwhelming that they would have no choice but to surrender. Send a message to Earth, Zekthul commanded. Tell them they are looking at the greatest military force ever assembled. Tell them to surrender now, and their people will be treated with mercy. The response from Earth came 6 hours later. It was not from a political leader or a diplomat. It was from someone called Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb. The human who appeared on the communication screen was older than the previous admiral they had met. His hair was white, his face was lined with scars, and his eyes held the look of someone who had seen too many battles. Fleet Admiral Zekthul, Webb said in a calm voice. I am Admiral Webb, commanding the First Fleet of the United Earth Navy. We have observed your impressive fleet. We appreciate the show of force. Then you understand your situation, Zekthul replied. Surrender now and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Admiral Webb smiled, but like all human smiles, it did not seem friendly. Actually, Admiral, I think you misunderstand your situation. You have brought a large fleet to threaten our home. We consider this an act of war. Act of war? Zekthul was incredulous. You are outnumbered 60-1. Your 7th fleet was impressive, but no single fleet can match what you see before you. You are absolutely correct, Webb agreed. A single fleet could not match your force. That is why we will not be using a single fleet. Before Zekthul could ask what that meant, his sensor operator called out an alarm. Admiral, massive energy signatures emerging from behind Earth's moon. On the tactical display, new contacts began appearing. First one, then 10, then hundreds. Ships were emerging from what had appeared to be empty space, their stealth systems disengaging to reveal themselves. But these were not the ships Zekthul had seen before. These vessels were enormous. Each one was several kilometers long, bristling with weapons that made hegemony cruisers look like toys. First Fleet, reporting for duty, Admiral Webb announced. More ships appeared from behind Mars. These were sleeker, faster-looking vessels that seemed to bend light around themselves. Second Fleet, stealth operations standing by. From the asteroid belt came another group, their ships looking like mobile fortresses covered in armor and missile batteries. Third Fleet, siege operations ready for action. One by one, more fleets revealed themselves. Each group had completely different ship designs, different tactical formations, different specializations. The Fourth Fleet emerged from Jupiter's shadow with ships that looked like they were built for speed. The Fifth Fleet appeared near Saturn with vessels covered in scientific equipment and exotic weapons. With each new fleet that appeared, the hegemony's tactical display became more crowded. More red contacts, more weapon signatures, more ships than should have been possible to hide in one star system. How many? Zekthul whispered. 6th Fleet rapid deployment. At your service, came another voice. 7th Fleet. Ready for round 2, Admiral Kane added, her familiar voice carrying amusement. 8th Fleet. Experimental Weapons Division standing by. 9th Fleet. Planetary assault awaiting orders. Finally, the largest group of ships emerged from behind the sun itself. These vessels were truly massive, each one the size of a small moon. They moved slowly but with obvious power. 10th Fleet Strategic Deterrence in position, announced a new voice. Admiral Zekthul stared at his tactical display in horror. Where moments before his fleet had outnumbered the humans 60-1, now he was looking at a force that outnumbered his fleet 3-1. Each human fleet was specialized for different types of warfare. The First Fleet consisted of massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets. The Second Fleet ships were barely visible on sensors until they chose to reveal themselves. The Third Fleet carried enough firepower to destroy entire star systems, but it was not just the size of the human force that terrified him. It was the organization. These fleets moved with perfect coordination, taking positions that surrounded his force completely. Every ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. This was not a hastily assembled defense force. This was a military machine that had been planned and prepared for decades. Impossible, Zekthul breathed. No one could hide a force this large. Admiral Webb's voice came through the communications again. Admiral, you are currently surrounded by 10 fleets of the United Earth Navy. Each fleet consists of between 200 and 500 vessels, depending on their specialization. Your force is outnumbered, outgunned, and outpositioned. But where did they come from? Zekthul demanded. Our scouts have been watching this system for months. Some of our fleets have been stationed in deep space for years, Webb replied calmly. Others were hidden using stealth technology your scouts could not detect. A few were simply disguised as asteroids or debris until you arrived. The tactical officer's voice was shaking as he made his report. Admiral, the human ships are targeting our entire fleet simultaneously. Every vessel is locked onto multiple targets. Admiral Webb continued speaking as if he was discussing the weather. You came here to threaten our home, Admiral. We take such threats very seriously. You have one opportunity to withdraw your fleet and return to hegemony space. If you do not take this opportunity, we will destroy every ship in your armada. You cannot, Zekthul protested. The destruction of our fleet would mean war between Earth and the entire hegemony. "Admiral," Webb said, and for the first time his voice carried a hint of steel. "You brought the largest military force in galactic history to threaten our homeworld. As far as we are concerned, you have already declared war. The question now is whether you want that war to start with the complete destruction of your fleet." On the tactical display, Zekthul could see the human weapons charging. Thousands of targeting systems were locked onto his ships. If they fired, his entire force would be wiped out in minutes. But it was what Admiral Webb said next that broke his spirit completely. "I should mention, Admiral, that what you see here represents our home defense fleets. Our expeditionary forces are currently stationed in other parts of the galaxy. If you force us to destroy your fleet, those forces will consider it an act of war and respond accordingly." "Other forces?" Zekthul asked weakly. "Fleets 11 through 20 are currently on patrol in distant sectors," Webb replied. "They will be very unhappy if they have to return home to find you have forced us to destroy you." 20 fleets. The humans had 20 full combat fleets. Admiral Zekthul looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Fear was written on every face. The greatest military force in hegemony history was surrounded and outgunned by a species they had thought was primitive. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet, his voice heavy with defeat, "withdraw to the edge of the system. We are returning to hegemony space." The retreat was orderly but quick. As the hegemony ships pulled back, the human fleets maintained their positions, watching but not pursuing. The message was clear. "We could destroy you, but we choose not to." As his fleet reached the edge of the Sol system, Admiral Zekthul received one final communication from Admiral Webb. "Admiral, when you report to your leaders, please give them this message. Earth wants to be left alone. We have no interest in conquering the galaxy, but we will not tolerate threats to our independence. The next time anyone brings a fleet to our system with hostile intent, we will not offer them the chance to withdraw." The communication ended, leaving Zekthul alone with his thoughts and the knowledge that everything had changed. The hegemony had assembled the greatest fleet in galactic history, only to discover that it was not even close to being enough. The humans had not just defeated them, they had made it clear that defeat was the merciful option. As his ships jumped to hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's overwhelming military might back to the hegemony, Admiral Zekthul realized that the galaxy would never be the same. The age of hegemony dominance was over. The age of human deterrence had begun. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The hegemony's greatest fleet had fled from Earth without firing a single shot. Within days, every civilized world knew that the balance of power had shifted forever. On the crystal world of Veltara, ancient beings who had served the hegemony for 1,000 years held emergency meetings. On the ocean planet of Aquatica, the swimming creatures who had never known defeat discussed what this meant for their future. On dozens of worlds, species that had lived under hegemony rule began to whisper about something they had not felt in centuries: hope. In the hegemony council chambers, chaos reigned. Representatives shouted at each other in languages from across the galaxy. Some demanded immediate war with Earth. Others called for negotiations. A few even suggested surrender. High Counselor Tekvar struck his ceremonial staff repeatedly, trying to restore order. When the chamber finally quieted, he spoke in a voice that carried the weight of 3,000 years of authority. "The facts are undeniable," he announced. "Earth possesses military capabilities that exceed our own. We must decide how to respond to this new reality." Admiral Kethavar, who had been promoted to Chief Military Advisor after his encounter with humanity, stood to address the council. "Honored counselors, I have spent months analyzing every piece of data we have about human military capabilities. My conclusion is that a war with Earth would result in the complete destruction of the hegemony." The chamber erupted in angry voices, but Kethavar continued speaking over them. "The humans have 20 full combat fleets. Each fleet is specialized for different types of warfare. Their technology is superior to ours in every measurable way. Most importantly, they have been preparing for galactic warfare for over a century while we have grown comfortable with peace." Counselor Melandra leaned forward. "What do you recommend?" "We adapt to the new reality," Kethavar replied. "The humans have made it clear they have no interest in conquering the galaxy. They want to be left alone. I suggest we grant them that wish." "You suggest we surrender?" demanded Counselor Rekthon. "I suggest we survive," Kethavar answered. The age of expansion through conquest is over. If the hegemony wishes to continue existing, we must find new ways to interact with other species. While the hegemony struggled with their new reality, the rest of the galaxy was experiencing something unprecedented. Hope, the Tarkarian Republic, which had been fighting a losing war against hegemony expansion for decades, sent a secret message to Earth. Their communication was simple. We would like to discuss mutual defense agreements. The response from Earth came within hours. Ambassador Chen Li, now promoted to Secretary of Galactic Affairs, appeared on their communication screens with his familiar smile. The United Earth government is always interested in speaking with peaceful neighbors, he said. We would be happy to discuss ways we can work together. Similar messages began arriving from across the galaxy. Species that had been forced into the hegemony against their will started reaching out to Earth. Trading. Companies that had been restricted by hegemony. Regulations offered to establish commerce with human worlds. The humans, to everyone's surprise, proved to be reasonable negotiators. They did not demand tribute or submission. They did not insist on territorial concessions. They simply wanted fair treatment and mutual respect. Within 6 months of the Great Fleet's retreat, Earth had signed defense agreements with 43 different species. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries reopened. Technological exchange programs brought innovations to worlds that had been stagnant under hegemony rule. But the most significant change was in space travel itself. Human fleets began patrolling the major shipping lanes, not as conquerors but as protectors. Piracy, which had plagued the galaxy for millennia, virtually disappeared overnight. The sight of a human patrol fleet was enough to send any criminal organization fleeing to the farthest corners of space. The humans did not negotiate with pirates. They did not offer second chances. Pirates who attacked merchant ships simply disappeared. Admiral Kethvar found himself assigned to a new position, hegemony liaison to Earth. His job was to study the humans and find ways for the two powers to coexist peacefully. What, he discovered, changed his understanding of warfare forever. The human approach to military power was unlike anything he had encountered. They did not use their fleets to intimidate or control. Instead, they used them to create stability through the certainty of overwhelming response to aggression. It is quite simple, Admiral Webb explained during one of their meetings. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We just want to make sure no one else can threaten the peace we have built. But how do you maintain discipline among so many fleets? Kethvar asked. How do you prevent your commanders from becoming ambitious? Webb smiled. Admiral, every human fleet commander knows that their job is to protect, not to conquer. Anyone who tried to use their fleet for personal gain would find themselves facing the other 19 fleets. The conversation took place aboard the UES Deterrent, Admiral Webb's flagship in the First Fleet. Kethvar had been amazed to discover that the ship's crew included beings from dozens of different species, all working together under human command. You recruit from other species, he observed. We accept volunteers from any species that shares our values, Webb corrected. Peace through strength, protection of the innocent, defense of those who cannot defend themselves. As months passed, more species began requesting permission to send their young people to serve in human fleets. The humans accepted them all, training them in human military doctrine and sending them back to their homeworlds as advisors and protectors. The galaxy was transforming. Instead of one empire controlling everything through force, there was now a network of independent worlds protected by the certainty that aggression would be met with overwhelming human response. The hegemony itself began to change. Faced with the reality that their old methods no longer worked, they started focusing on trade and diplomacy instead of conquest. Worlds that had been forced into their empire were quietly given independence. Military budgets were redirected to scientific research and infrastructure development. Some hegemony hardliners resented these changes, but they were powerless to stop them. Everyone knew that any attempt to return to the old ways would bring 20 human fleets down on their heads. Ambassador Chen Li stood before the newly formed Galactic Council, addressing representatives from over 100 worlds. The meeting was being held on a neutral space station, built jointly by humans and their allies. 2 years ago, he said, this galaxy was controlled by fear. Fear of conquest, fear of oppression, fear of those who were stronger. He gestured to the diverse gathering before him. Today we have something better. We have peace built on the foundation of mutual respect, and the certainty that aggression will not be tolerated. In the audience, Admiral Kethavar listened with mixed emotions. The hegemony he had served for 3 centuries was gone, replaced by something new and strange. But he had to admit that the galaxy was more peaceful now than it had been in millennia. Earth's fleets will continue to patrol the shipping lanes, Chen Li continued. We will continue to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But we will not rule. We will not dictate. We will simply ensure that no one else can do so either. As the meeting ended and representatives from dozens of worlds mingled and talked, Kethavar approached Chen Li. Ambassador, he said, I have a question that has been bothering me. Please, ask anything. Your people speak of 20 fleets, but our intelligence suggests you are building more. Are you planning for war? Chen Li's smile was gentle but firm. Admiral, humans learned long ago that the best way to prevent war is to be so prepared for it that no one dares to start one. We are not building more fleets because we want war. We are building them because we want peace. Kethavar nodded slowly. It was a philosophy that took time to understand, but he was beginning to see the wisdom in it. As he walked through the space station, observing beings from dozens of species working together in harmony, he realized that the humans had achieved something the hegemony never could. They had created peace without oppression. The galaxy was no longer ruled by the strongest empire. Instead, it was protected by the strongest deterrent. And that deterrent was not the size of human fleets or the power of their weapons. It was the absolute certainty that anyone who threatened the peace would face consequences so overwhelming that no rational being would risk them. In the depths of space, human patrols continued their endless vigil, 20 fleets, soon to be 30, watching over a galaxy that was finally learning what true peace could look like. The age of conquest was over. The age of protection had begun, and in the Sol system, construction continued on even more fleets. Because humans understood the most important lesson of all. Peace was not something you achieved once and kept forever. Peace was something you had to guard every single day. The galaxy was safe, and it would remain safe as long as Earth's fleets continued their watch among the stars.